Hello, everyone. I'm LoVetta Jenkins, the Wellness and Outreach Coordinator for Barrier Breakers and the podcast host. Today, we're going to be talking with Martha Stolze. She is the Director of Admissions at Beloit College in Wisconsin, and we're going to be having some great conversation and talking about golden nuggets and the Goldilocks method. If you want to know more about that, then please stick around. Welcome, Martha. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, LoVetta. I really appreciate it.
We are going to have a great time because I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. Start off by telling our listeners and viewers a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the director of admissions at Beloit College in beautiful Beloit, Wisconsin. I have been an admissions professional for over 30 years. And, I like to joke that I started when I was 12, but that's actually not the case. It was my first job right out of college working for my alma mater, Augustana College in the Quad Cities, which is right on the Illinois-Iowa border. I worked as an admissions counselor for a few years, and I think many people start in admissions not
Mhm.
even knowing it's a thing you can do, right? We just kind of fall into that career. I thought I really wanted to do marketing and advertising until I did an internship in an advertising agency. And I was like, oh no, this is not for me. So it was one of those things where I tried and I just really fell in love with the career. It
Mhm.
tapped into a lot of the things you do in marketing or advertising, right? Those communication skills, but I
Right.
was helping people, and that really was what made it the career for me. So I went off to grad school, worked at a few different places. Earned a Master of Science in Higher Education from Syracuse University, earned my MBA from North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. So I've done a lot of different things within the world of admissions, and it's just something that is really near and dear to my heart because I am a first generation college student. Both my
Wow.
sisters, my older sisters, went to school before me, went to college before me. But it's still, I think, a road that I understand for
Mhm.
students who are going to really be the first in their family. And so it's one of the best parts of my job is to work with those students and their families and supporters,
Mhm.
and help them navigate it. So that's why I'm delighted to be here today.
I'm excited to hear all about this amazing career you've had in admissions. But first, I want you to tell me how you ended up at Beloit College.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say that when my own kids started looking at
Mhm.
colleges, I was starting to get these little tingles of like, I really miss being at a smaller liberal arts and sciences college like the one that I
Mhm.
attended. The school that I was at before that was a fantastic school, but it was just kind of a little bit different in its mission and the types of programs that it offered. And I really missed that focus on just undergraduate students.
Mhm.
And so when the opportunity at Beloit came up, it was just, I really honestly kind of felt a calling to be at that kind of traditional liberal arts and sciences school where there's a lot of personalized attention for students. It's only undergraduates, so the faculty really see it as their mission to not just be great teachers, but great mentors of our students. My oldest kiddo did not attend Beloit. She actually ended up at a very similar institution. But it's kind of nice, actually. My son is a current Beloit College student. So, in addition
Excellent.
to my official hat as director of admissions, my unofficial hat is Beloit mom. And I'm really proud of that as well.
Yeah, that's got to be cool to have your child going to the same college that you champion for and that you try your best to get other people in. So let's talk about what Beloit looks for when they're, of course, looking for students to admit. What is it that makes the school special, and what is it that they look for in other people?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. For me, what makes a great Beloit student, we call them Beloiters, and we'll also use the very made up word Beloiter-ish. So for us, a Beloiter-ish student is what I like to think of as an and student, right? They're the student that does athletics and student government. They're the student that wants to go pre-med and is really passionate about keeping up with the violin, right? It's that student that is not wanting to define themselves by just one box. One of
Mhm.
my favorite stories of a current student is one of our football players, and he took a theater class as part of our general liberal arts and science courses and ended up loving it.
Mhm.
He convinced one of his friends to try out for the spring play with him, and they both got parts. And at first, they were a little nervous to tell like their teammates, like, "Yeah, dude, I'm doing the play, right?"
Yeah.
And it the team embraced it. The head football coach actually bought tickets for the entire football team to go see
Mhm.
them and support them in the play. So it's very much the type of place where you can be more than just one thing, and you can try new things, see if it's right for you, and if it's not, that's okay.
I like that you said and kind of student because what you don't want to do is put yourself in one spot and stay there. It's good to do something physical and act. And I'm telling you, once you get bit by the theater bug, it's kind of a thing. You kind of stay there a little while. And no matter what you do, you're always going to find yourself in it in some kind of way because I got bit by the theater bug in high school as well. And it's something that just never goes away. You end up loving it forever. So I love the fact that he's just playing football and he's got a little
Right.
something extra. That's perfect. What
Yeah. So
other Beloit-ish isms, I made it my own word, are you all looking for in students other than and? What else are we
yeah.
looking for?
I think students that are really open-minded, open to meeting people that are different than them.
Mm,
We are truly a national and international student population. We have
okay.
students, I think right now we're at 43 different states and 30 different countries. And that's in a student population of 1,000 students, right? So it is not unusual to meet somebody from a completely different background than yours. I mentioned my son is a current student. His roommate, his first year, was an international student from Uzbekistan. Um, I had to Google Uzbekistan. I could kind
Right.
of sort of find it on a map, right? But I had no idea.
I'm sure that that's not one they teach us in regular school. I'm sure that's not one because I'm like, I've
Right.
heard of it, but don't know where it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of those geography B questions in the like
Mm-hmm.
final rounds, right? So, but yeah, so it was great for both of them to be interacting with somebody from a very different culture, different country,
Yeah.
different language, different religion background. My son got to be the Midwest expert, which was also kind of neat, right? You don't necessarily think of that, but he was like, okay, this is a tornado siren. This is what we do now, that
Right.
sort of thing. But it's you kind of laugh about it, but sometimes you don't realize the things you take for granted until you meet somebody from a very different background, right? So um, this student, the international student, signed up to go to a haunted house with the International Student Club, and then he was like, "Dan, what is a haunted house?" Right? So something we just
Oh,
take for granted about our culture, and
right.
until you're interacting with somebody that is from a different culture, sometimes you don't realize what it is. So
Mhm.
again, just open-mindedness, somebody that is willing to engage with people that might be different from them, might have different beliefs.
Mhm.
I think the other thing that really is a hallmark of a Beloit College student is somebody who understands that sometimes you learn through making mistakes. And that is a challenging lesson for anybody of any age to really take to heart. But I think the Beloit College community, and with that, I absolutely include the faculty members. they are so supportive and they understand that, right? And so sometimes you're going to learn most from the class that you're not getting an A in.
Mm.
And again, that can be a hard lesson to learn. But I think the students who really thrive at Beloit are the ones that kind of are willing to push themselves outside of their comfort zone a little bit, and maybe experience that, like, this isn't what I'm the best at, but that's okay because I'm learning and growing.
Oh, I love that. So we've heard all the great things about the college, and now I'm like, do I want to go? But I want to know on applications, and as you're combing through them, I know over a 30-year career, you have seen some doozies. What is it that you specifically feel students should know should be on their applications and should not be on their
Mhm.
applications?
Yeah. So I will say, first of all, paragraphs are your friends when you're writing essays.
Mhm.
Um, I have read many, many, many essays where there are some fantastic nuggets in there, but it is so clear that the student was coming right up on that deadline, right? And they just sat down and started typing, and nobody
Right.
looked at it afterwards. No paragraphs, and it's a very stream of consciousness, right?
Mhm.
So, it is so important to help us really get to know the applicant in the best way possible, to not be distracted by that, oh, it's one page, that is one teleparagraph.
Right.
Please, please, please have, a teacher or a parent or a friend or somebody, just read that over at least once and just, maybe give you a few little tweaks. So um, I appreciate it when students are honest in their essays, when they maybe use a little sense of humor in their essays. But I will say there is sometimes things as sharing a little too much as well.
Okay.
So in terms of what not to put on an application, um, it can be a challenge, right? We want to take into consideration if students have had, some really intense personal experiences that may have impacted their grades,
Mhm.
or things like that. That is important for us to know. But again, I think there is kind of that element sometimes that happens of oversharing.
Okay.
And so if you kind of think of it as like almost writing a resume for your first job, right? This is your application to college, is the start of your career, and think like, is this a professional thing to say? If I went to a
Mhm.
store and the person who was, helping me select my clothes at the store that I'm at started telling me all this intimate detail about their life, like,
Ah,
how would I how would I perceive that? So um, we absolutely love to see what students are involved in terms of their extracurricular activities.
okay.
Um, and I think it is important to know that, at least at places like Beloit, your family responsibilities absolutely should go on that application. If you are the person that's responsible for younger siblings, or for making sure that your household is organized in the morning before everybody gets
Mhm.
out the door, please tell us that. That tells us so much about you, and we want to
Mhm.
hear that. I think the other thing that we like to see on applications into are, students that have challenged themselves as much as they can in their school class choice.
Okay.
Every school is different. Students have so many, there's such a wide range out there of what student opportunities they have, in terms of, AP coursework or not, honors coursework or not, and things like that. We're not looking for every student to have taken every AP class ever, right? But we
Okay.
do want to see that, like, again, maybe you challenged yourself and you took that one harder math class, even though you could have coasted without it, or you took that one AP class to really show that you're ready for that college level work.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of the personal things. How about community service? Should they try to shoot for some extracurricular things in the community, or do you think that's overkill?
You know, I think it depends on the student, right? So I think if it's a student for whom that will be a meaningful experience, absolutely do it.
Okay.
But if you are doing it just because you feel like you have to, like, it shouldn't be a chore, right? And so I think it's a really kind of personal decision. Again, we like to see students that are involved, but we know that that's going to look different on every single student. So, there are students for whom doing, the community service is not necessarily their thing, and that's okay, right? It's not a mandatory thing for us by any means. So, if it's something that you're curious about, you want to give it a shot, you try it out, maybe you find it's fantastic, great. And if you find out it's not for you, then don't feel like you have to keep going with it, in my opinion. Just to feel like you are, again, checking a box. So.
Okay. Okay. We mentioned, you mentioned earlier about making paragraphs your friend. Are there other things that you have seen on personal statements or in essays that really, other than oversharing, that really needs to, those are things that shouldn't be there. What should 100% be there other than, hey, I'm the oldest daughter, so I'm like second mom? Is
Mhm.
there something that really would stick out to you?
For me, it is so individual. I think it's hard to say that there's one thing that everybody should have, right?
Mhm.
But I do think that it can be really helpful, if students share in their essay a moment of growth, right? So that can look lots of different ways for lots of
Mhm.
different students, right? It can be the student who thought, playing football was the most important thing to me. And then I tore my Achilles heel. And all of a sudden I had to, recognize that, okay, this can't be my one and only, right? And it made me
Right, right.
reevaluate, what my priorities were. It might be a family situation. It might be, a friend situation. It might be a class where you were really challenged to think differently.
Mhm.
So I think there can be lots of different ways that expresses itself. But for me, reading an essay where a student is demonstrating some sort of personal growth, always really stands out.
I never even thought of that, sharing that the as we would say a come to Jesus moment or that
Mhm.
pivotal moment in your life when you realize, hey, I really have to come up with something else. This can't be I cannot be a one trick pony. I have to think outside the box and grow outside of it. I
Mhm.
never even thought that that would be something that would be on an essay for college. Never even thought about that. So I know if I haven't, someone else hasn't either. I think that over 30 years, you probably have amassed one of the best mental databases of things that I can ever think of that should and shouldn't happen in admissions. But we've talked about wonderful things that Beloit has to offer and what it really takes to get in and what you're looking for to get in. But tell me about the flip side of it. If
Mhm.
someone really wanted a fast-paced life, it seems like this wouldn't be necessarily the place, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, I think if somebody's really focused on, kind of like more technical careers, or,
Mhm.
they really want to do, an intensive engineering program, they really want to do, something like that. This
Mhm.
probably isn't the right fit. Or really even on the other side, if somebody, wants to do, a art and design, they want to become, an interior designer or a fashion,
Mhm.
designer or something like that, this probably isn't the right fit. We're kind of in that middle where we
Mhm.
we offer a wide range of courses and majors, from, biology to business and economics to anthropology. But for some of the things on either that far art side or the far STEM
Mhm.
side, it's not probably the
I would
right fit
say
for
that
them.
this sounds like the college that my lunch table could have went to in high school. I was the smart kids, like the group of smart kids who still like had the theater interest, a couple sports kids over there, but we were all the ones that weren't too far left or right
Mm-hmm.
of the compass of what was going on. And I think that this would be the perfect place for someone who is in, like you said, and student. I
Mm-hmm.
like to paint or and I like sports, or I really like
Mm-hmm.
business and I like theater. This would be the perfect place for someone like that, and their friends. Everybody at that lunch table, I
Yeah,
feel,
yeah.
would be super perfect at this particular college. And I know that a lot of high school students are going to see this. And I want to ask you because, I think that sometimes it's a misconception that you don't really have to think about college until your senior year.
Mm.
When is the best time
Mhm.
for a parent or a student to start thinking about which colleges they want to go
Mhm.
to and when to start zoning in and focusing on that?
Yeah, yeah. So ideally, I think sophomore to junior year is when you should really start looking at it. And one of the things, yes, with my long experience, this kind of sounds hokey, but I really do stand by it. I am a firm believer in the Goldilocks approach. So
Okay.
what I mean by that is go to one school that you think is too big and one school that you think is too small, or a school that you think is too far away, or a school that you think is too close to home. And
Mhm.
go and sit in the chairs. So go sit in the classes, go eat the porridge, go to the cafeteria, and you'll start to figure out what feels just right. And so the earlier you start that process, the more it kind of gives you a chance to kind of test the edges of those spectrums, right? And so I have encountered so many students over the years who thought like, oh, well, I wasn't going to even consider the school because I thought it was X, right? Again, they thought it
Mhm.
was too big or too small or too close or too far or whatever. And then they're like, and then I went and I was like, oh, this is awesome, right? So um, I've been doing this a long time. I know all of the college brochures look the same after a while, right? We've all got the
Mhm.
smiling faces underneath the fall trees, and
Yeah.
right? And I have looked over my shoulder at the email inboxes of my kids when they were in high school and started getting slammed with all the college email. It is so
Mhm.
hard to keep on top of that, right? And again, it can all start to sound the same. So I am a very firm believer that if it is within your family's means and your means to do as much in-person exploration and campus visits as you can, the better. And
Mm.
having said that, I'll also add, if you are in a family situation or a personal situation where you're like, oh, I'd love to go visit that school, but just logistically or financially, I don't think that's a realistic thing. First,
Mhm.
please talk with your school counselor, because oftentimes there are great opportunities for students to do school funded trips,
Mhm.
or they'll know of resources within the community to help pay for that, or ask the college and say like, I would love to come visit your college, but it honestly just, we can't financially make it work. Sometimes schools, including Beloit, by the way, will have funding available to students that need it, to help pay for some of those campus visits.
That was not just a Goldilocks method. That was a golden nugget as well. I had no idea that schools would just be on some, hey, psst, come here. We'll foot the bill if you come over here and take a look. That is phenomenal. And I think that that was some of the best advice that I think we could have ever told anyone. Because a lot of times students do think, oh, I cannot go visit. My mom and my dad, they're already working. The budget is stretched thin. I know I can't ask them for $200 to go on a road trip to go check out colleges. And it just so happens that if you speak to somebody, and that's the other thing, we have to start speaking up because
Mm,
nobody knows you'll want to do it if you don't say it. And sometimes, almost always,
absolutely.
that school guidance counselor is going to be your plug when you are trying to get into a certain place because they know some things. They've been there a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And lo and behold, Beloit has the little funding to go do it. Fool around, I'm going to have to come over there and see what Beloit is doing. Because listen, Wisconsin can't be too bad considering I know kind of what your weather is doing. So it's got to be amazing in the fall.
We are just hitting peak foliage right about now.
See, yeah, it's got to be good. Got to be good. Well, Martha, I thank you so much for joining me today. Do you have any parting words for our listeners before we conclude?
I would just say again, as a first generation college student myself, like be proud of that. I think for so long, people felt embarrassed, right? Or they
Hmm.
felt like, oh, if I'm not a legacy or things like that, it was
Yeah.
something that they, were really shy about. But there are so many schools that have so many great resources for first generation college students. And
Mhm.
as you said, LoVetta, if you don't ask, sometimes people don't know to tell you
Mhm.
about it. Not every school is going to ask that information on their application. So
Right.
please ask the admissions folks that you work with, what does your school do to help support first generation students? And oftentimes, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with all of the infrastructure that colleges have in place. Because here's another thing, right? It does not do colleges any good to
Mm-mm.
have a student come to campus and then have that student not be successful.
Right.
If we admit you, we want you to be walking across that stage in 4 years and graduating, right? And that's a very selfish thing for the colleges, but it is true. And so we want to know that if you're coming, we want to invest in you as a student and make sure that you're successful. So, whether it's asking, for tutoring help or help with writing or, whatever it might be, please ask and ask as you're looking at colleges in advance what they're going to do to help.
That was phenomenal. Thank you again, Martha. I appreciate it. And of course, we're going to have you back and talk about some other things because with 30 years worth of knowledge, I know you've got more to share. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
So, if you are interested in working with us and learning more about how we can help your teen or your program of students get through the college application process, you can always visit us at barrier-breakers.org, or more specifically, you can visit us at college.barrier-breakers.org. Again, that's college.barrier-breakers.org. You'll be able to find all information about our services there. You can always send us an email at hello@barrier-breakers.org. And if you are interested in supporting the work that we do here as a nonprofit, you can always go to barrier-breakers.org/support. There you'll be able to see more about how to help us support more students, how to volunteer with us, or if you want to sponsor a student and help us as we expand our free access to low-income students, you'll be able to sponsor a student there as well. None of this would be possible without your support. So whether you are supporting our work or you're signing your student up to work with us, we are so looking forward to getting to know you.